Hi, I'm David Bennett. I'm a piano player and I make videos on YouTube about music theory. And today we're going to look at 4 tricks, 4 little things we can do at the piano that make us sound like pros, even if we're not a pro. These 4 tricks will suddenly bring our playing to the next level. All of these black notes just will always sound good together. It doesn't matter if I hit them chaotically like this, or if I'm more careful and navigate around them. As long as I just play black notes, as you can hear, I can't really hit a wrong note. And that's because the black notes happen to give us what's called the pentatonic scale. The pentatonic scale is a simpler form of the major or minor scale. We only have 5 notes instead of the full 7, hence pentatonic, penta meaning 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it repeats. The thing about a pentatonic scale is that there's no semitones, there's no opportunity to hit a wrong note, basically. Even if I hit these 2 notes, which are really close to each other, yes, there's a sense of tension, there's a sense of rub between those 2 notes, but it's not an unpleasant sound, unlike when you hit a semitone. So that's what makes the pentatonic scale sort of foolproof, because it doesn't matter how I hit these notes. They will always sound good. They can't clash. I can't make them clash. So our second trick that we're going to use is what's called a pedal tone. And this is when we have a consistent note in the left hand, our pedal tone. That's happening in the left hand. For example, C. I'm going to play as an octave, C and C together, but you could just play single C. That's the pedal tone. What we basically have to do here is play any chord we like over the top, pedaling through, consistently playing C, no matter what happens in the right hand. So of course, if we're playing a C chord, it's quite natural to have C in the left hand there, but we can go to any chord we like. So I could play a G chord over the C, like that, or an F chord, C again. What about E flat chord? All over this consistent C in the left hand. D flat chord, C. And here it suddenly sounds so harmonically sophisticated. All I'm doing is playing random chords in the right hand, random major and minor chords over a consistent C, and this just glues the whole thing together. Creates a sort of sense of almost like a tension as well, because obviously some of the chords, like C major here, will match the pedal tone really nicely. Some, like D flat, will create tension. But the great thing about this trick is we don't have to really think too much about what we're doing. We don't have to think about, okay, which chord will work here. Even something like G flat sounds pretty intense and dramatic, but as long as we then move somewhere else, it all kind of works. It sounds quite cinematic, actually. It's quite a common trick in cinematic music. So that was the pedal tone. And the next trick is actually kind of related to that. It's what we call an inverted pedal tone. Sounds sophisticated, sounds complex, but it really isn't. It's the same idea of a consistent repeating note, but instead of being in the bass area, it's in the higher registers of the piano. That's the inverted element of it. So literally the same idea is applying again. We're going to have a consistent note, C. So I'm going to keep playing C in the right hand, just playing it with this regular rhythm like this. And then the left hand is going to add some chords. I'm going to add them in the middle range of the piano, simply because if I add chords down here, it could sound a little bit too thick. Right there, sounds quite dense. I'm going to put it around here instead. It sounds a bit sweeter. Just going through a few different chords here. This is an A minor chord in my left hand, F chord. We're going to go up to a G chord in my left hand, but the whole time, my right hand has just been sticking on that C, D minor. With each different chord we go to, it's almost like we hear a different context, a different sort of shade of this consistent note. Even though the note's not changing, the context is changing. So our last trick is what we call grace notes. Now, a grace note is a really small, fleeting note that happens before the main note. I could just play C, E, and G like that, or I could do this. Sort of a blink and you miss it moment, really, but it's suddenly added another dimension to what I'm doing. What I'm doing here is adding in a grace note. The grace note being this E flat. So what I'm actually playing is this C, E flat, and G, but immediately allowing my middle finger to slip down from the E flat note to the note that we actually need in the chord. But that tiny little moment adds so much character to what I'm playing. One of the easiest ways to do it is when you're playing a chord like C or maybe G or F, where the middle note should be on a white note, but has a black note to its left. And that gives us a great opportunity to use the same finger to just slide between the two. You can really accentuate it and let it drag out a bit. Or you can make it so fast that you barely even notice it's happened. But you don't have to do it there, you can use it in any setting. So for example, if I had a D flat chord like this, the middle note hasn't got a black note next to it. The note above is also a white note, but I can still do a grace note here, but now it involves two fingers instead of the one. And that can be a slightly more fiddly thing to get the hang of. There's something very simple and straightforward about falling from a black note onto a white note. But now let's look at how we can apply that to a melody instead. Because one of the things I really like about grace notes is the way that a singer would perform a melody, a vocalist, is that they wouldn't necessarily just play the notes requested of them. They're going to be kind of sliding into or sort of approaching the notes from other places. So rather than landing immediately on the first note of the melody here, for example, on A, they might kind of slide into it from the note below. Like that, coming off the black note below. They're adding that grace note in without even thinking about it. And when you do that with your piano playing, you add that vocal, almost lyrical quality to your playing. Without the grace notes versus with. Sort of thing where you don't want to overdo it, you don't want to have a grace note on every single note you play in a melody because it might get a bit much. But it's something you learn to sort of pepper in as you go to add expressivity to the melodies that you play. So those were 4 easy ways that you can sound like a better piano player. 4 little tricks you can add to your repertoire that you can pull out in any situation really and just take your playing to the next level and impress everyone who's watching. Comment below, let me know what your favorite trick was, and I'll see you next time.